It is Monday, January the 10th. I am John Pollock, joined by Wai Ting for your first post-daily news update of the week. Hello, Wai.
Hey, John. Happy Monday. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. We have much to discuss coming out of a very busy weekend in professional wrestling. It was a bit of a blur, maybe for some people, with all that was going down. Off the top, both Wai and I, we want to send out our best wishes to Chris Ely, who is on the mend. He is recovering after a health issue over the weekend. Won't get into specifics, but all the best to Chris Ely from the NWA podcast.
Yes, absolutely.
This weekend, Wai, how are you feeling this Monday after what was a very intense day of pro wrestling on Saturday? There were three pretty significant events going on between the New Japan Noah card, Impact presenting its pay-per-view, and then AEW's Battle of the Belts that you did a post-show covering.
Yeah. I mean, these weekends don't seem all that uncommon anymore. Really, we'll have multiple events being covered on the site. But as far as my viewing, of course, I watched the AEW show, but also just a bit of Impact. Haven't had a chance to watch the Wrestle Kingdom Night 3 yet.
I have not seen the Noah New Japan card either, but I'm planning to get to that this week. Of course, the show will be up Saturday for Wrestle Universe and New Japan World subscribers, but we have reviews of all three shows up on the site if you want to catch up on any of those. Of course, Wai and Kate from Montreal did a tremendous job reviewing Battle of the Belts. Then Hard to Kill was reviewed by John Cena and Davey Portman. But for patrons, Mike Murray, WH Park, giving their very clear thoughts on what they felt New Japan and Noah had to offer on Saturday with a great dissection of not just the card, the ordering process, everything. Everything was covered on this show, including Ticket Melon and WH Park explaining to us what Ticket Melon was and needing QR codes to get this show. They went through all of the trials and tribulations, and at the end of it, we got a great review out of it.
It's always fun when we get Mike and WH together doing anything, but specifically trying to order a Japanese professional wrestling pay-per-view off of a website. Great stuff.
I could listen to those two go on for hours. I love listening to those two together. They're just such a perfect, like they are a contrast to one another, but at the same time, just one completes the other, truly.
We also have written reports for all of those shows if you just choose to intake your reviews or simply want to see different opinions that way. Very detailed reports from Mark Buckledy talking about Wrestle Kingdom 16 Night 3. We have Bruce Lord reviewing Battle of the Belts, and also John Cena with his Impact Hard to Kill written recap as well.
Yes, and at the end of the show today, we will tee up some of the big shows coming up this week. It's another packed edition of post wrestling coming out this week. But I would say, Wai, that the last couple of days were very positive for Impact Wrestling. I thought that they garnered a lot of attention off the Mickie James announcement on SmackDown and kind of parlayed that into some last minute buzz for Hard to Kill on Saturday night. And it was also, it seems strategic that they were going to have some news announcements throughout the day on Saturday, including the hiring of Tom Hannafin, formerly known as Tom Phillips in WWE, who I know, Wai, you've gotten to see parts of the pay-per-view. I've seen just about everything. The only thing I've not seen yet is the Gresham-Sabin match. I thought that he was terrific on this show. Like, always had the knack of being a very professional broadcaster in WWE. He came into that seat. He was equipped with all of the stories. He was making references to events of way back, citing his own fandom of the company, mentioning like the early days of Decay, but never forcing it on you. It's not, sometimes you will see announcers when they're out of their comfort zone, they will rely heavily on stats, and it can become very apparent when they're just reading off of a page, this, that. He wove them into the stories where it made sense. I thought he worked very well with D'Lo. I think this is a great pickup by Impact. And that is one area that you look at play-by-play commentators, again, a position in pro wrestling, at least a full-time one, not too many of those positions, but man, are there some quality ones out there. And we got two of them on Saturday with both Tom Hannafin and Ian Riccaboni sitting in for the Ring of Honor match.
That is correct. Yeah. From what I was able to hear, I really enjoyed Tom Hannafin. I don't know if he was necessarily a name that I think, audiences were constantly bringing up of wanting to see him, pop up on one of these shows. So when he was announced as an Impact replacement, I was a little bit surprised. And I liked his commentary in the WWE, but like it never necessarily stood out to me. But I
I
don't know
think
who
that's by
could.
design, way. Like I do think that's kind of like the prototype they want, is that they don't want the broadcasters to be, standing out in any kind of way, negative or positive. I think that's sort of like the straight line they want. Generally, you'll see some deviations from that.
Sure. Yeah, and for that reason, I don't know if it was necessarily a name that people were curious to hear outside of that system. But now that we have heard him outside of the system, I very positively reviewed, and a guy who clearly came in with something to prove. He came in here and did. I don't know when he got this job, but the man feels like he's been watching Impact forever and spoke of it as if he was a longtime fan, knowing very deep storylines between all the participants. And I mean, many of the roster members, of course, he would be familiar with calling their matches in the WWE. So that adds a bit of already, built-in credibility. But somebody who fit in perfectly with that system.
Yeah, some of the highlights of the show. I mean, we got to see Speedball Mike Bailey's debut on the pre-show. Nice kind of spectacle for Mike Bailey, who I thought was a great hire by them. The women's Ultimate X match, while some scary moments in this match, I thought that the six worked very, very hard. You saw the moonsault off the beam by Lady Frost. That was among the highlights, and Tasha Steelz getting the win. Like I thought these women worked super hard, and they went in with a match that's pretty well revered in Impact history. This was the first women's version, and I thought they did a really great job. This was a great opener.
As a car crash type of match,
that's what Ultimate X is, essentially.
That you would expect from an Ultimate X, I thought they absolutely more than delivered. To me, it was a spectacle. And if you're somebody who just kind of wants to start off your professional wrestling show wanting to see something that is incredibly captivating, maybe not the cleanest at all times, but I mean, I don't really care for a show like that, for a match like that, I would say. I just kind of care more about constant entertainment. That match absolutely provided. It was a very, I would say, good success for the first women's Ultimate X.
So some other highlights: Trey Mcgill retaining the X Division Championship against Steve Macklin, who has had a really great run since coming into Impact. Jonah, this was his big first match with Impact, losing to Josh Alexander. They went almost 17 minutes, and Alexander submitting him with the ankle lock, and the ankle was kind of the focus of the match, while Jonah was destroying the ribs of Alexander. They had a very strong match. The Hardcore War. This was very long. This was essentially a War Games match where it was two start for 3 minutes, and then every 90 seconds a new participant comes out. So I thought this was really long, and this is coming after a week where, this was back to my my kendo sticks. I was like, okay, let's swear off kendo sticks at this point. But the notable angle came at the end. The baby faces prevail, and then they are attacked by a contingent that included Mike Bennett, Matt Taven, Vincent, PCO, and then at the end, Maria Kanellis entering the ring, almost as the mastermind behind this quote unquote invasion that is happening. That was, I guess, the most notable storyline to come out of this that will continue on the tapings that they did the next day.
I was watching Battle of the Belts and even preparing for the post show as this angle started to take place. And I would say I feel like we got a good amount of buzz from Impact, and for an angle like this, more than Battle of the Belt. Certainly in terms of storyline repercussions, I think you got more coming out of the Impact than you did for AEW. So I think it's a great idea for an angle. It keeps ROH alive. For Impact, I mean, they're a company that just seems to be wanting to work with every single company that's out there. Anything that can benefit and get Impact wrestling being said, being written in a headline is going to be seen as a positive for them. And I think this adds to it. It's, both companies, I think, can use each other. And at this point, do invasion angles really mean a whole lot when you've kind of broken the the seal on this entire thing over the past year? I'm not so sure, but all I really care about, and I think all the audience really cares about, are fresh matchups, interesting storylines, and if you can create the illusion of invaders coming in and delivering great matches at the end of it, I think we'd all sign up for it.
And then the final two matches, Moose retained the Impact Championship, like well, this was like a fun three-way match with Matt Cardona and W. Morrissey, ending when Moose powerbombed Cardona into the referee and Chelsea Green, who had gotten involved in the corner in throughout the match, including a high cross off the stage, and then Moose speared Cardona. The original ref comes back to count 3. And the main event, Mickie James retaining the Knockouts Championship in a Texas death match with Deonna Purrazzo. And this, they had a very violent match. This was not, thankfully, no injuries, the level of Kenta coming out of this, but both women bled. There were thumbtacks, multiple thumbtack spots throughout this match. And Matt Raywell taking one of the nastiest guitar shots. We got 2 guitar shots this week, and neither of them looked fun to take, this being one of them. And then the Mick DT to pin Deonna Purrazzo after she was then put with underneath tables and chairs, because after the pin, a 10 count had to be administered, and Deonna stayed down. 1944, Mickie retains the title. Were you at all surprised they kept the title on Mickie James? Because it seems that they feel, what is the most buzz for this Royal Rumble appearance? And it's more buzzworthy of our Knockouts champion going into the Royal Rumble, rather than worrying about our champion is going into a battle royal to be eliminated. I think that would be very small thinking. And in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it really matters. But for them, I guess they figure it's more valuable that she's got the title going into this higher profile event later this month.
Well, they can always take the belt off of her right before the Rumble if they were actually concerned about that. But
I would not be concerned about that if I am Impact. It's like just not a thing I would be all that concerned about. If you have long-term plans with Mickie with this title, I would not be altering them just because she's going to be tossed out eventually in this Rumble. The fact is, she's going to get a big pop. We'll probably get a nice moment or two in the Rumble, and then depart the match. But I don't think it reflects poorly at all. I just think that's it's just, it wouldn't even be a thing I would be worried about it if I'm.
Does she show up with the belt?
That's interesting. I would guess no, but you can't rule that out. The fact that she has been identified on WWE programming as Impact Knockouts champion, I guess that's kind of interesting if she shows up with the belt or not.
Yeah. I was a little bit surprised. I think, because of the announcement, and even before the announcement, I feel like the expectation might have been for Deonna Purrazzo to win the belt back. But the fact that Mickie kept it suggests that they're very happy with the amount of press that Impact has received as a result of this Rumble announcement. And we'll see where it goes. We'll see what the presentation is like. Certainly, they were not shy about mentioning the Royal Rumble throughout the show. So they're very much kind of using this as, I mean, it really honestly kind of felt like, like an NXT person getting a call up to a Royal Rumble. And at this point, I don't know if that's such a bad thing for Impact to be perceived as, so again, they're a company that's willing to lend their name to other companies and to lend other companies' names to their product in order to just get eyeballs. Over the past week, they've made deals and announcements seemingly with, I mean, if you extend to Anthem, and New Japan Pro Wrestling, ROH being a part of the show, and now the WWE as well.
Yeah, I think like Impact is not out there fighting a perception battle to be thought of as the number one company. I think people would have a very different view of this if this was AEW that was, oh my God, someone's in the Royal Rumble on our roster. We worked out a deal for this. But that is not Impact's position in the marketplace, and they're very self-aware of that. This year, and this weekend kind of exemplified this, that Impact is like, where will Impact find its audience this year? They got some buzz on Friday. They had a very well-received pay-per-view, but where do they fit in terms of audiences and all the options that they have? Saturday's pay-per-view was very strong, but you had a free AEW special going against it. Like, where does Impact become a priority for fans? And that will be something we look at throughout the year, is that outside of WWE and AEW, and then maybe New Japan underneath that, like, where do you prioritize your next level of must-see viewing that you're going to keep up with a product like an Impact that has a very strong roster? Do they have the audience that supports it on a routine basis?
Well, I will say, I think the changing of NXT to NXT 2.0 and the WWE's continued release of talent that typically would be defined as sort of like indie wrestling superstars, that leaves a major opening for Impact to really take a step up as a number three. If they continue to deliver quality for their pay-per-view events the way they have with Hard to Kill, it'll continue to hopefully make these a priority for people in their wrestling viewing, even if they're not necessarily watching every Thursday. But also the continued working relationships that they're trying to build with New Japan, and if the AEW relationship continues. I mean, AEW I think right now has an issue where, and it's not an issue, but they have so much talent under their own umbrella that I just see not as much of a need to work with other promotions, unless you're talking about a major superstar like a Kazuchika Okada or something like that. But Impact is the opposite. So, I can see continued relationships with New Japan, of course. And then this WWE thing, I don't know if it'll amount to anything more than what this Mickie James appearance will be, but nonetheless, the perception is there that Impact is a company where, as they describe, the nexus of this entire, I'm trying really hard not to say the dreaded
the FD,
the elusive hardware term, but they're building the perception that they are a company that is willing to work with everybody, and that makes it really exciting because you never know who's going to show up.
Yeah, and I mean, it'll be a continuing issue. It's especially on the AEW front when we talk about the numbers, and there are a company that are not looking at doing traditional house shows, but at the same time, you want a lot of these talents to be working as much as possible, not just for just strictly development, but also keeping them happy. And to me, that's going to encourage a company to let out a Dante Martin to go work elsewhere. And given the current parameters, you can't really send them overseas for a tour and or go to Japan for 2 months and then come back. Like, that's not an option. So working within the country, I think it kind of pushes you towards this kind of thinking of, hey, we want our guys to be out there. We want to keep them busy. And if an Impact is willing to take someone for a month or two, that's a benefit to us, rather than this person just staying here and doing a couple dark matches a month when they're not slotted into the big picture for Dynamite and Rampage.
And if you're an ROH fan, at least temporarily, this feels like the place you might go to see, at least a good chunk of the roster. I'm curious to see how far they take this, invasion angle. Who else might join in on it? I mean, on the show already, you saw Jonathan Gresham, who had a great match with Chris Sabin. Roxy was in the crowd teasing something with.
That's right. Her and Deanna are going to have a match on Thursday's show.
Yes, there you go. So, I feel like the invasion is already in place, and I hope to see, it culminate probably maybe in all the way up until April.
Well, Ring of Honor today did confirm Supercard of Honor for Friday, April the 1st, and they're going to be running the show in Garland, Texas at the Curtis Culwell Center, which is the venue that both AEW has been running in Garland and New Japan Strong ran not too long ago. Now, what's interesting is that the distance, like, this is not right around the corner from where a lot of the events are going on in Dallas proper. If you look at where AT&T Stadium is in Arlington, it's like a 40-minute drive to Garland, to this venue. So it is a bit out of the way for some. However, it is confirmation of the date, which I think most assumed, like, Ring of Honor is going to run this show, but they did not list that date on the last pay-per-view. And all we know is that tickets will go on sale for Honor Club members on January 21st, and the following week for the general public. No talent has been announced as of yet, because they are not renewing contracts as well. So that's going to be a mystery. And what sort of the theme of this show is going to be. This is certainly going to give us an indication of what you can expect from these ROH shows. Are they just going to rely on the talent that was there in December that are going to come back for what are just going to be largely one-offs? This card will kind of give an indication of what these shows, what you can expect from Ring of Honor in this next phase.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think if you're a New Japan fan, if you're a member of the former Ring of Honor roster, I think you're at least excited to know that Sinclair is committed enough to put a show on and to announce a ticket sale for it. So, I mean, I would expect Jonathan Gresham, I would expect Bandito, if both of them aren't signed already by that point, to make appearances to defend their championships. I have to say, even if they are signed, unless it's the WWE, if either of them are signed, I feel like they would make provisions to be able to drop the championship. I mean, if it was any other company. And I also want to bring up here, thanks to Karen Karen Peterson in the chat room here for bringing up the fact that New Japan Pro Wrestling is actually announced a WrestleCon show for
Strong's doing a taping.
Yeah, New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong. Yeah, New Japan Strong is doing a show on that very same day, 5:00 though. So I mean, I don't know when this Ring of Honor show might be, but presumably
the Strong show should be over. And well, I mean, you do have that travel time as well, but you know, I would imagine Supercard of Honor is probably going to be, you know, a 8 p.m. start time roughly.
Yeah. I like the Friday for the Supercard of Honor. I mean, you know, at that point, your competition is SmackDown. And yeah, a lot of people going to WrestleMania for WWE are probably going to go to SmackDown. It might be a loaded show even, but you're going to have a whole lot of other people who won't give a shit at all about SmackDown that would be curious to see whatever Ring of Honor would be able to provide.
Yeah, I mean, we're starting to get into. I think we're going to start to get like a slew of WrestleMania weekend announcements of the companies that are going to be running, what's going to be attached, like add-ons to WrestleCon, which has been rolling out their talent announcements. But there you go. So Supercard of Honor happening on April the 1st. Tonight on Raw, they are in Philadelphia, and what we know so far is RK Bro against the Alpha Academy for the Raw tag titles. A triple threat with Bianca Belair, Doudrop, and Liv Morgan, with the winner challenging Becky Lynch for the Raw Championship at the Royal Rumble. And catch a glimpse at Alexa Bliss's journey back to Raw. I don't know what this means, but the journey begins tonight in Philadelphia. Exciting.
Yeah, sure. I mean, it means vignettes. We await to see whether or not it's of the wacky variety and whether or not we'll have, you know, some early candidates for worst of this for 2022.
Yes, but before we can start the list for 2022, we've got to reveal our picks for 2021, and that is going to be coming up later this week. The worst of 2021 show with Way, Braden, Davey, and myself giving out all of our awards for the very worst that the year had to offer. That is just one of many highlights this week. We will be returning with Rewind Away on Tuesday. What are we reviewing this week, Way?
We are going to be talking about a DVD/VHS released in the 2000s called "'Cause Stone Cold Said So," based on Stone Cold Steve Austin. This is a Patreon executive producer's request, and it's less than an hour, which I'm incredibly grateful for.
Have you watched this?
I've not yet. Have you?
I did.
Okay.
This might be a very short podcast. This might be our shortest Rewind Away ever. That is what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Andrew Thompson is going to be interviewing Janae Kai on Tuesday as well. We've got Thursday, the MMA prediction show, the 2022 edition. Myself and Ariel Hawani will be looking back at the predictions made last year, and then we will play a brand new likely, unlikely game for 2022. Always a lot of fun with Ariel Hawani. That will be premiering in this slot on Thursday at 1 Eastern. So we won't be doing a news update that day. In its place will be myself and Mr. Hawani. And the same day, the British Wrestling Experience is back. Martin Bushby, Andy Ogden, and Benno, who will be chatting all the latest Brit Res news. And then Black G's will be interviewed by Andrew, who's got a very busy week. That comes out on Friday. Long and Winding Royal Road on Saturday, with Martin Bushby joining WH Park to chat about Masawa Kobashi, their first meeting in Noah in March of 2003. And then the week caps off with WrestleNomics Radio, who on this week's show, they have a great rundown, a timeline of Paul Levesque leading NXT and all the trials and tribulations that have gone through that brand since 2014, when he started doing media conference calls with the wrestling media, and where that message has gone and everything that led up to Braun Breaker destroying that X last Tuesday.
All right. A lot of stuff coming out, a lot of live streams coming out this week as well. So stay tuned here and subscribe to youtube.com/postwrestling.
And that's going to wrap things up. We're back tonight live at 11:15 p.m. Eastern time with Rewind to Raw, live access for Double, Ice Cap, and Espresso members of the Post Wrestling Cafe, where we will give a thorough breakdown of Alexa Bliss's journey back to Raw. See you tonight.